Maybe you clicked on this video because you'd like to get started in welding and you're just not sure if the typical cheap welder is going to get you by, or maybe you're not doing that and you just like to listen to me ramble on this channel. Either way, I bought the cheapest welder I could find on Amazon, which after tax and shipping came out to about $57. So if you're using the excuse that you can't afford to start a welding business, well, you can't use that excuse anymore. These days, they make such budget-friendly options, things that anybody can afford just to get started. This is a stick welder, which is basically the most simple kind of welder you can have because it's essentially just a battery. As I got this welder unboxed, I thought it was pretty cool how small this welder is. It's about 6 inches tall, 8 inches long, and 4 inches wide, and it's super light. So this just may be a great welder for me in the future if I'm doing small repair jobs in the field where I've got 110 power and it's in a spot where I don't want to take my big mobile generator. When I first struck up the arc, it seemed like it was welding pretty well. That is, until I tried to take this apart, and then it just completely came apart, and that weld didn't even stick. So I tried it again, and the same exact thing happened. I tried this many more times, and every time the weld had a really nice feel to it, and yet when it was done, I tried to pull this apart, and it just came apart without any resistance. Now, there's a couple of things that might be going on here. The first of which is this welder for $57 might actually just be a scam, and it might not actually make nice welds. Or the second option is I might just be too dumb to figure out how to use this welder. Or it could be a combination of both. Either way, I'm not a quitter, so I'm going to keep going and see what I can get out of this machine. If nothing else, it'll make for an interesting YouTube video. After a few more practice runs, I finally got a weld that was halfway decent. There's still that one spot in that weld that is just not good, but the rest of it actually looks pretty good. Looks like it's got good penetration. Again, this is 1/8 inch thick material. Now, the more runs I did with this welder, the better I got with it. And what I found is that you have to really push your rod down into the metal. With a welder that puts out more heat, you can lift up that arc a little bit and it's going to still put in a good weld. But here, you have to push that right down to the metal. And if you do that, it seems that you can actually get a really solid and really good looking weld if you know what you're doing. And I don't really know what I'm doing, but at least I'm trying. I am genuinely not the best stick welder out there, but you can't say I'm not trying. Everybody who ever succeeded at anything or got good at anything first had to fail a lot at that thing. And success does not come without failure. Now, I'll let you decide for yourself whether you want to buy one of these welders or not. And if you do, I'll leave a link in the description below. I could just finish the video there, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I want to find out if this welder could actually be used on a daily basis, and if it's something that I would consider for my own business. Because it's one thing to lay a few beads down on scrap metal, but it's completely another thing to actually use this for my projects. The project I'm going to be testing this welder on is this custom gate for my garden. And I figured I'd test this on some of my own stuff before I actually put a customer's stuff on the line. And this way, if the customer has any complaints, well, I am the customer, so I only have myself to blame for it. But it is kind of cool when I am the customer because I can design stuff exactly how I want it, and I'm only paying material and powder coat prices. But the labor on the project is just my time, and so I don't actually have to fork out money for that. And so that's one thing that's really cool with owning your own business, is that within your specific niche, you can pretty much do all the work yourself, and your projects, you get to design them however you want. I find this welder really hard to weld miter joints with, and that's what I was doing a lot of here. because it tends to burn through really easily. So you can kind of play with the settings, but you don't have a lot of adjustment because you only have one control. And all throughout this whole process of me testing this welder, I kept having pinholes in the welds and having to go back and fill them again and again until I finally got them filled. Now, when I tried to weld the inside of these miter corners, that did not work very well. I tried to run my weld down like I do with my MIG welder, but that was not effective. It didn't fill up that inside corner. So what I ended up doing for those is I put them in a flat position and then I welded over top of those, and then they actually came out pretty well. I welded with this thing for about a full day, and well, there was no damage to the welder. The welder looked good. Neither the ground nor the work cable burned up, so that's a good thing. But I found that the arc was just really hard to strike with this thing. I don't know if it's just my technique or if that's the machine itself or the rods. I think maybe that's just because this thing is running on 110 and it doesn't put out a lot of heat. It would have been really nice if there was a 220 option for this machine, but it only came with 110. Another thing that's pretty annoying with this welder is the leads are just so short. So I had to carry this thing all the way around my table. With a little bit nicer of a welder, they would have longer cables that would actually reach all the way around my table, so I don't have to carry this thing into different positions on my table, which, since this welder is so light, it's pretty easy to carry from one place to another, but it's just not ideal that the leads are so short. As I had mentioned, I welded for a full day with this thing, but eventually I got pretty frustrated because this thing is just so slow to weld. It does work, but it's very slow due to it being so hard to strike the arc initially. And then when you do get it struck, I ended up with a lot of pinholes that I had to go back and fill afterwards. And so it just took a lot of extra time. And then having to carry this welder all the way around the table wherever I went. And then on top of that, just being a stick welder takes a lot more time. Having to keep switching out rods just takes a lot of extra time. So if you're a beginner, I would not recommend getting this machine, but I would recommend getting a cheap MIG welder because a MIG welder is going to be so much easier. In fact, the easiest is going to be get something that you can use with a shielding gas if you have a shop to use it. Because time is money, and if you use a MIG welder for your production work like this, it's going to save you so much time and hassle because all you got to do is push the trigger and go. Here I probably spent 3 or 4 times as long because it was a cheap welder and because it was a stick welder. So do yourself a favor and get a MIG welder. However, I don't hate this welder. I am certainly going to keep this welder in my tool case for future projects. For example, if I build a gate or a handrail for a residential project and it's at or near a house, I'm going to install the rail. I want to take a little welder with me just in case I've made a mistake and I need to correct something on site. This would be the perfect welder for that. So for $57, this is a great little backup welder. Keep it in your kit for that one time you might need it, or maybe just as a spare in case your main welder breaks down and you need something extra to get a job done. Thank you guys for sticking around till the end of this video. If you've enjoyed this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. That would really help me out. Hit that like button and leave your comments down below. That also really helps me out. And Lord willing, I'll see you on the next video.